The courtroom wasn't ready for the sound the cuffs made. They didn't clink. They cracked. Metal hit wood as the bailiff dropped them on the defendant's table harder than necessary. The handcuffs spun once, then lay still between a stack of glossy legal folders and a $1,000 watch. The young man in the chair glanced at them and smiled. "That's cute," he said. "You really think I'll need those?" The bailiff didn't answer. He didn't have to. The cameras were already zooming in on the smirk. He was in his late 20s. Perfect hair. Collar open over an expensive shirt that didn't know what sweat looked like. The kind of jawline that worked well in business magazines. The kind of eyes that never had to learn the word no. He lounged back, one ankle resting on his knee like this was a lounge and not small claims court dot in the back row. Someone whispered, "That's him." The developer's son. On the bench, Judge Renee Parker adjusted her glasses. She was small, sharp, and older than most of the people who tried to outsmart her. The kind of woman whose stillness made even the cameras nervous. She tapped her pen once. "Case of Hussein versus Kastel," the clerk announced. "Parties, please stand." The defendant didn't move. "You heard him," the bailiff said. "Stand up." Slowly, like it cost him something, the young man unfolded himself from the chair. He did a half bow that somehow managed to be mocking. "Your Honor," he said, all charm and teeth. "Noah Kastel. Happy to clear this little misunderstanding so we can all get back to real work." Judge Parker's eyebrow lifted a fraction. "Happy," she repeated. "We'll see how long that lasts. Sit." He dropped back into the chair, jaw tightening just a little dot at the other table. The plaintiff stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. He grabbed it, apologizing under his breath before anyone had a chance to react. He was in his late 30s, maybe 40. Dark skin, close-cropped beard threaded with stress gray. Simple shirt pressed as best as a tired hand could manage. There was a pen behind his ear, like he'd walked out of paperwork to be here. "State your name for the record," Judge Parker said. "Amir Khan," he replied. "Owner of Little Nest Daycare." Or I was... His voice wobbled just enough on that last word to make the gallery sit up straighter. Noah glanced over, phone still in his hand, thumb hovering. "A daycare," he muttered. "You dragged me here over finger paint and nat-nats." Judge Parker didn't look at him. "Mr. Khan," she said, "you've brought a suit against Mr. Kastel for wrongful business interference and damages, following an emergency building closure. Do you understand you're under oath?" "Yes, Your Honor," Amir said. His hands were shaking. He hid them by lacing his fingers together. "Good," she said. "Start from the beginning. What happened?" He took a breath. 6 months ago, he began. "I signed a 3-year lease on a ground floor unit in a building on 9th and Layton. I've been saving for that place for 7 years. Little Nest was doing well. We had a waiting list. Parents finally trusted me." In the second row, a woman with a baby on her hip nodded, eyes wet. 2 months ago, Amir continued, their company bought the building. Kastel Urban Group, new owner, same lease. I kept paying rent. No issues." He paused, throat working. "Then one morning I came to open," he said, "and there were yellow, unsafe, do not enter stickers across my door. Notice from the city. Structural hazard, effective immediately. No warning. No inspection I knew about, just shut." He looked at the judge, desperate not to cry in front of strangers. "My parents were calling. Parents of the kids. My staff. I had to tell them we couldn't open. I called the number on the notice. They said they had a report. The building was unsafe. Cracks and beams. Risk to children. No one informed me before. No time to fix anything. Just gone. Gone," Judge Parker repeated. "Your entire business, overnight?" Noah rolled his eyes. "Drama much?" He muttered. "He's alive. The kids are alive. The building's the only thing dead here, and we were going to knock it down anyway." "Mr. Kastel," the judge said without looking at him, her voice suddenly a degree colder, "you will not speak until I address you. Am I clear?" He opened his mouth. The bailiff shifted his stance. Noah shut it again. "Mr. Khan," she said, What happened after the closure? He swallowed. I went to the building, he said. I saw caution tape. No cracks, no sagging. Nothing new. I'd paid for my own inspection when I moved in. We passed. I begged the city to give me the report. They said it was confidential pending further review. He reached into his folder with clumsy fingers, pulling out a sheaf of paper, slightly crumpled at the edges. But a week later, he said, one of the city clerks slipped me this. Off the record. It's the report they used. It's signed by an inspector I've never met. And the photos in here. He shook his head. They're not my building. A murmur ran through the room. Judge Parker nodded to the bailiff. Bring that here. As the paper changed hands, Noah finally sat forward. Your Honor, he said, voice smoother than it had any right to be. If I may, we acquired a crumbling property. We flagged risks. The city did its job. He's upset because progress looks like loss to people who don't think long term. That doesn't make it illegal. Judge Parker held up a single finger. He fell silent. Asterisk, she flipped through the report. Cracked concrete. Corroded beams. Waterlogged ceilings. Each photo had a building ID at the bottom. Her eyes narrowed. Mr. Khan, she said, have you ever operated another daycare in another building? No, he said. Just that one. Just Ninth and Layton? And you're telling me these aren't photos of your space? She asked. That's not my flooring, he said. We have vinyl tiles. Those are old hardwood. Our ceiling is drop panel, not plaster. That window is wrong. Everything is wrong. So if these are not of your unit, she said slowly, someone either mixed properties or deliberately used the wrong images. She looked at Noah. Who requested this inspection? She asked. He smiled. Our company flagged concerns, he said. We care about safety. We emailed the city like good citizens. They handled the rest. Do you have that email? She asked. Somewhere, he said. My assistant handles the paperwork. I just sign things. She watched him for a moment, letting the lies sit between them. Funny, she said at last. Because according to the clerk who alerted Mr. Khan, the request came from your personal address, not the company. Skirting the edge of a smirk, her eyes flicked to the cameras. Mr. Castell, she said softly, did Daddy's development empire really need your help to take out one daycare? Or was this your own little favor to the family business? His jaw ticked. The gallery held its breath, because for the first time since he'd walked in, the confidence that had been plastered all over his face cracked out, and Judge Parker wasn't even close to done. If you were a mirror right now, watching the man who killed your business shrug it off like a parking ticket, would you be able to stay this calm? Or would you be the one yelling in this courtroom? Think about it. Then ask yourself what kind of courage it takes to fight power without losing your mind. Asterisk, what you're implying, Noah said. Sitting up straighter is ridiculous. What I'm doing, Judge Parker replied, is asking questions. The truth is the part that makes you uncomfortable. A soft laugh escaped from the gallery. The judge's eyes snapped toward the sound. Silence returned instantly. Mr. Castell, she continued, turning back to him. Did you send an email to the city inspector's office from your private account requesting an emergency review of that property? He shrugged, a little too casual. I talk to city departments all the time. We're revamping half that block. If I emailed them, it was about the overall plan. Clerk, the judge said. Put Exhibit 3 up on the screen. The monitor on the wall flickered, then displayed a screenshot. An email from n.castell@private to inspections@city.gov subject. URGEN, type childcare space at 9th and Layton. Read it, she told him. He stared at it. Color draining from his face 1 degree at a time. Out loud, she added. Asterisk, his tongue wet his lips. Inspector team, he started. We've received multiple complaints about a ground floor daycare at 9th and Layton. Visible cracks, water leaks, exposed wiring near children. Please prioritize this space. It's a liability waiting for tragedy. He stopped. There's more, the judge said calmly. He swallowed. Owner is resistant to closing, he read. May ignore warnings to protect income. You may want to route this through Commissioner Blake's office for faster action. He looked up. You flagged a competitor as a liability and suggested they go through a friendly commissioner. Judge Parker summarized. All from your private email. And you expect me to believe this was about safety, not clearing a unit you wanted empty? We had plans for the building, he said, a little too quickly. We were negotiating buyouts. He wouldn't take the offer. The place is a dump. Kids crawling around on old pipes. Amir cut in, incredulous. We renovated that unit ourselves. New plumbing. New wiring. You never set foot in my classroom? The judge held up a hand between them, cutting off the overlap. Mr. Khan, she said, did you receive complaints from parents about safety issues? No, Your Honor, he said. I invited parents to walk through any time. I posted videos every week. We had our last official inspection 2 months before that email passed. And you have that certificate? She asked. He nodded, producing a laminated sheet from his folder. The bailiff ferried it up. Judge Parker compared the dates. Inspection passed, she read. Date, April 14th. Mr. Castle's email, May 3rd. Closure notice issued, May 5th. She set the papers down. In 3 weeks, she said slowly, you went from cleared to condemned. With no new inspection Mr. Khan knew about. Based on an email from a man whose family business profits when buildings empty out. She let that hang. Ms. Judge, Noah snapped, mask slipping. This is business. He had a 2-month clause. We exercised it. He's crying here because he can't adapt. We'll get to the lease, she said. Right now, we're talking about you telling the city he was risking children's lives when you had no evidence. You saw the photos, he said. What, you think I staged mold? She leaned back. I think, she said, we're not done with those photos. She turned to Amir. Mr. Khan, when you say those aren't your ceilings and floors, she said, can you prove it? He reached for his bag, fumbling for a second, then pulled out a USB drive. Yes, he said. We run a live webcam for parents. For transparency. One of the fathers pulled hours of footage from the week before closure. You can see the room. No mold. No cracks. And no moving the camera to hide problems. The judge asked. You can check the timestamps, Amir said. It's continuous. The bailiff took the drive to the clerk. Fingers flew over the keyboard. The screen changed once more. This time the picture was clear. A bright, clean daycare room. Colorful mats on the floor. Shelves of picture books. Tiny chairs in a semicircle. Amir himself moving through the frame, stooping to pick up blocks. Greeting a child who runs in with open arms, the gallery let out an involuntary, collective awe. The camera skimmed across the ceiling, smooth white tiles, walls spotless, no stains, no bubbling paint, no cracks. Pause, the judge said. The image froze. Now split screen, she told the clerk. Our alleged inspection photo on one side, Mr. Khan's video still on the other. The comparison was brutal. One, sagging plaster, black mold rings, an old wooden frame. Other, clean tiles, fluorescent lights, plastic window casings, different floors, the judge said. Different ceilings, different window, different building. She turned slowly toward Noah. Explain that, she said. He shifted, jaw tightening. I don't control what photos the inspector uses, really? She asked. Because his report quotes your email word for word in the concerns raised by landlord section. A muscle twitched in his cheek. Probably copied it for accuracy, he said. Convenience, she countered. It's funny how accurate they were when describing the fake danger, and how inaccurate they were when picking the actual property. His eyes flashed. Listen, he said, leaning forward. We did him a favor. The neighborhood's changing. That building's coming down. He'd have been out eventually. We tried to buy him out nicely. He refused. So we sped up the inevitable. It's not personal. Amir stared at him. Not personal. He repeated. You shut down the place where I watched 30 children learn to say their first words. Where single mothers drop their kids so they could work double shifts. Where I promised those parents their babies were safe while they were gone. His voice broke. You killed that, he said. And you sit there calling it inevitable? Noah's lips curled. If emotion paid rent, he said, maybe you'd still be in business. The line sucked the warmth out of the room. Even some of his own hangers-on in the back row shifted sideways. Suddenly unwilling to be associated, Judge Parker's eyes went cool and flat. Mr. Keystall, she said. Do you hear yourself? I hear someone who understands the market, he snapped back. These people cling to crumbling buildings and call it community. We bring development, jobs. You think anyone's going to remember his little daycare when there's a glass tower and a Whole Foods on that corner? Excuse me, a voice called from the benches. A woman stood up, baby on her hip. It was the same one who'd nodded earlier. Sit down, ma'am, the bailiff said automatically. Let her speak. Judge Parker said. Name, Lauren Diaz, she said. My son was in that daycare? She jerked her chin toward Noah. You think I want your glass tower? She said, you think that'll watch my child when I go to work at 6am? You think Whole Foods is going to read him stories, or teach him to share, or love him when he cries for me? Noah smirked. You'll adapt. Everyone does. She shook her head. People like you, she said, think the city is Lego. You move pieces around. Knock down. Build up. But you never see the lives inside. You never have to. Her voice shook with anger. You called his daycare a liability, she said. My son called it school. He cried for a week when it closed. You did that. For a tower. Judge Parker watched Noah's face as Lauren spoke. Not a flicker of shame, just irritation that the narrative had slipped. I'm done listening to poor me stories, he snapped. She can find another sitter. He can find another unit. I have a schedule. Judge Parker's voice dropped an octave. You're right, she said. You do have a schedule. It's just been cleared for the rest of the day. She looked toward the clerk. Court liaison notified me this morning, she said. We have additional material. An audio file from a phone call you made to an internal Keystall group chat the night before that email was sent. She turned back to Noah. Eyes like scalpels, you know, she said. The one where you call Mr. Kane's daycare a roach nest and say, and I quote, I'm sending Dad the link. He'll nuke it by Friday. The blood drained from his face so fast it was almost impressive. He started. Play it. Judge Parker said. The clerk tapped a button, static. Then laughter. Club music faint in the background. Then Noah's voice, unmistakable, cocky, slightly slurred. Bro, you should have seen this place, recording Noah said. Like toddlers climbing around chipped paint. Sad toys. These people think they can hold out on me because they got a lease. I just sent Dad the address. He'll nuke it by Friday. Watch that little roach nest disappear. The recording clicked off. In the courtroom. You could have heard a tear hit the floor. Judge Parker stared at him. Still want to talk about safety? She asked. Noah didn't answer. He didn't have to. Everyone in that room already knew the truth. And the person who'd taught him to think lives were roach nests worth nuking hadn't even walked through the door yet. If you were the judge, would you stop here and just hammer him? Or would you wait for the person who raised him to walk in and face this too? Tell me in the comments which one you do, then watch what she chooses. Asterisk. The door opened quietly this time. No kicks. No drama. Just a soft click and a shift in the air that made every head turn. A man stepped in wearing a suit that cost more than Amir's entire monthly rent, silver at his temples. Tan deep enough to say, private driver. And golf course. The easy posture of someone who'd been shaking the right hands for 20 years, Marcus Keystall. The skyline had his name on it more times. Then the weather report. He walked down the side aisle. Not rushing, not apologizing. Photographers would call this his earnest, concerned face. The one he wore at ribbon cuttings and community meetings. He didn't look at his son. Not yet. He looked straight at the bench. Your Honor, he said, voice smooth as poured concrete. I'm terribly sorry for the disruption. I came as soon as I heard my company's name was being Misrepresented. Judge Parker didn't stand. She didn't incline her head. She just watched him the way a cat watches a bird that's forgotten it's in a cage. Mr. Castell, she said. This is a small claims court. You don't have to attend. I know, he said. I chose to. This allegation affects more than one grieving businessman. It affects our reputation, our projects, our contribution to this city. Amir let out a derisive laugh before clapping a hand over his mouth. Marcus's eyes flicked toward him. You must be Mr. Khan, he said. I'm sorry for any distress this process has caused you. Growing pains are never easy when neighborhoods change. But I assure you, nothing we did was personal. Amir laughed again, more bitter this time. I lost my livelihood, he said. I had single moms crying in my doorway. You traded their daycare for another glass box. You tell me how that's not personal? Marcus held up both palms. I understand the emotion, he said. I do, but stop, Judge Parker cut in. We're not doing the concerned CEO routine here. His jaw twitched. Barely. Your son, she went on, emailed the city from his private account. Called this man's daycare a roach nest, and bragged on audio that you would nuke it by Friday. The building was shut down on a bogus hazard notice 2 days later, with photos from a completely different property. She let each piece land like a blow. You want to talk about misrepresentation? She asked. We're looking at it. Marcus's eyes moved to Noah, finally. For a fraction of a second, something like fury flashed their dot. The sun shrank ever so slightly. I told you, Noah muttered under his breath. They twisted it. Is this true? Marcus asked him, low and sharp. Noah didn't answer. He didn't have to. The sound of his own recorded voice still hung in the room like smoke. The older man straightened. Mask back on. Your Honor, he said, my son is impetuous. He uses language I would never endorse. But at the end of the day, we flagged a property with an aging structure. The city acted independently. If they used the wrong photos, that's sloppy bureaucracy, not criminal intent. You're right about one thing, Judge Parker said. Your son is impetuous. But the inspector didn't conjure his phrasing out of thin air. He parroted your boy's email nearly word for word. She tapped the file, and I have yet to see an actual structural report for Mr. Khan's unit, she added. What I do see are internal memos from Castell Urban referring to this building as Phase 1 demo with a note. Daycare resistance, handle. Marcus's fingers flexed against his thigh. That, he said, is standard shorthand for tenant negotiations. We offer relocations, higher rate buyouts. Some people say no, we handle it by misusing safety regulations. She asked, by asking the commissioner to make sure his wheels don't roll again. His eyes narrowed. You're reading my emails, he said. Is that even legal? Mr. Ortega, she called to the witness, was your obtaining of these emails sanctioned through the court liaison? Yes, Your Honor, Eli said. Once I reported the attempted deletion, internal oversight pulled a mirror of the server. I just helped it get here. She nodded. Double quotes legal enough, she said. Marcus laughed softly. This is political theater, he said. You're turning a routine urban development into a morality play because it looks good on camera? Maybe, she said. Or maybe I'm sick of watching men in suits tell people who actually live in the city that losing their home or business is routine. She looked at Noah. You learned that, didn't you? She asked. From him. Noah's throat worked. Mr. Castell, the judge went on, eyes never leaving his son. Do you ever tell your kid no? The question hit harder than any legal term could have. Marcus frowned. What does that have to do with everything? She cut in. Because he walked into this room dripping disdain for everyone who isn't on your Christmas party list. He kicked at lives like they were debris. That arrogance wasn't born in a vacuum. She turned fully toward Noah now. Earlier, she said, you told Mr. Khan this was inevitable, that his loss was just business. Where did you learn to talk like that? The younger man stared at the table. Answer, she said, He glanced at his father. The look he got back said, "Don't you dare." And then something small but important shifted behind his eyes. "I heard it," he said quietly. "My whole life." His father stiffened. "Noah, in his meetings," Noah went on, the dam cracking. "At home, if they don't sell, make them wish they had. Everyone has a price or a pressure point. We're not in the building business. We're in a leverage business." Marcus's face went cold. "You're twisting casual conversation," he said. "Shop talk." He was a child. He didn't understand context. "Maybe not then," Judge Parker said. But he understood enough to grow up thinking other people's lives were leverage. She folded her hands. "Mr. Castel," she said, "have you ever used safety inspections as a bargaining chip before?" "Absolutely not," he snapped. "Funny," she said, "because this isn't the first time your name has brushed my desk." He blinked. "And what exactly does that mean?" He asked. 3 years ago, she said, a case came through involving a laundromat on 7th. Owner claimed your company pushed an emergency closure after he refused to pay out. Not enough proof then? City buried the files. She smiled without humor. "Looks like some of those files just dug themselves back up." His jaw clenched so hard you could almost hear it grind. "We're not on-screen villains," he said. "We built thousands of units of housing. We cleaned up crime-ridden blocks. We brought jobs. You're going to crucify us over one angry email from a kid and a sloppy inspector?" Amir's voice cut in, low and raw. "I'm not a rounding error," he said. "I'm not a line item. You didn't just clear a unit. You ripped out a place my community trusted." He looked at Noah. "You mocked my grief," he said. "Because you thought you'd never have to sit where I'm sitting?" Noah looked down. For the first time, something like shame flickered across his features. "It was just a joke," he muttered. "We talk like that. It's how we blow off steam." "A joke," Amir repeated softly. "My son asked me why he couldn't go back to his school anymore. I didn't know how to tell him a stranger thought his joy was an obstacle." "Where's the punchline in that?" The room vibrated with quiet anger. Judge Parker turned that weight back onto the Castels. "Mr. Khan," she said, "did you ever meet Mr. Castel here before your building sold?" "No," Amir said. "I got offers through his lawyers. I never saw his face until the news ran a picture at the groundbreaking announcement." He was smiling. "There was a cartoon tower in the background where my daycare used to be." Marcus bristled. "That announcement was months after," he said. "Planned before." Eli chimed in softly from his corner, clutching his folder. The project file scheduler had a tentative timeline document. Demolition was penciled in the week after closure. "Press release draft." He stopped, realizing he'd said too much. Judge Parker nodded to him. "Bring me that," she said. Eli stepped up, hands shaking, and handed over the printed timeline. She skimmed it. "Demolition crew booked," she read. "Press event drafted." Subject line: Castel Urban breaks ground on 9th and Leighton Renaissance, and date May 10th. She looked up. "The closure notice hit Mr. Khan's door on the 5th, she said. "You were scheduling champagne and photo ops for a building you were telling the city was too dangerous for kids. 5 days earlier." She stared at Marcus. "You still want to talk about coincidence?" She asked. "I want to talk about scale," he fired back. "About perspective. Cities evolve. People are displaced. It's not pretty, but it's necessary. You're making us villains for playing the game better than someone who didn't see what was coming." "And I want to talk about accountability," she replied. "About what happens when people who play the game better finally meet a table that doesn't flip for them." She looked at Noah again. "When you called him a roach nest," she said. "What did you feel?" He frowned. "What do you mean?" "You laughed," she said. "Did it feel powerful? Funny? Normal?" He swallowed. "Normal," he admitted. "It felt normal," she nodded. "And what do you feel right now?" she asked. He didn't answer for a long moment. Then his shoulders dropped. "Sick," he said quietly. "I feel sick." "Good," she said. "That's your conscience finally reporting for duty." She set the papers aside. Gaze hardening. "Mr. Castel Sr., she said. You taught your son that buildings are chess pieces and people are pawns. But you forgot one thing. He tilted his head, defiant. What's that? He asked. In this room, she said, the game isn't yours. The gallery almost applauded. The bailiff's eyes flashed a warning and hands dropped back to laps. Here's what's going to happen next, Judge Parker said. We're going to stop pretending this is just about Elise. She turned to the bailiff. Get me internal affairs on the line, she said. And city legal. They're going to want to see these emails. Both. Castles went very still because this had just stopped being a big developer's nuisance hearing. It had become the first domino. And a line they thought no one would ever touch. If you were Noah right now, watching your father finally lose control in a room he can't buy, would you throw him under the bus to save yourself or go down protecting him? Be honest, what would you actually do? Noah didn't answer the question out loud. He didn't have to. His eyes did it for him. They flickered between his father, the judge, the stack of incriminating papers, and the man whose business he'd burned without blinking. The perfect triangle of a life he'd taken for granted. Power, law, and the people crushed between them. Judge Parker watched it all. This is your moment, she said quietly to him. Not his. Not mine. Yours. Marcus leaned forward, voice low and lethal. Choose your words very carefully, son. The courtroom felt colder, like someone had opened a door to a dark winter outside. Noah exhaled. You keep telling me to be a man, he said without looking at his father. To own what I do? I'm trying. He turned his eyes back to the bench. I sent that email, he said. I called the inspector from my phone. I bragged about it. I told my friend's dad would nuke the place. I thought it made me impressive. His cheeks colored. The humiliation of hearing himself say it sober stung more than any comment online ever could. I lied, he added. When I said I didn't remember, I remembered every word. I just didn't want to own it. Marcus's jaw ticked. Is that all? The judge asked. No, Noah said. But if I keep going, he's going to hate me. He jerked his chin toward his father, and he might lose everything, he added. Everything he built. Judge Parker didn't soften. He risked someone else's everything to protect his, she said. So did you. That's what we're dealing with. Amir watched Noah, arms folded, not in anger now, but in weary curiosity. There was a long-buried recognition in his eyes. He'd seen this look before in fathers caught lying to their kids about why they'd missed another pickup, and landlords pretending mold was just dirt and politicians hugging children during campaigns and forgetting their names. Afterwards, the look of someone realizing their reflection wasn't as flattering as they thought. What did your father say? Judge Parker asked. When you sent him that bar video? The question hit like a thrown stone. Marcus stiffened. There was no video, he said quickly. I don't have time to watch my son's internet. Whatever. Funny, Eli murmured under his breath. Because I flagged a large media file download from his address that night. The judge's gaze flicked his way, inviting him to continue. It was deleted the next morning, Eli added, a little louder. But the server log kept the entry. Same timestamp as the email to the inspector. Noah closed his eyes. He texted me, he said. After watching it, read it, the judge said. Word for word. Noah scraped a hand through his hair. He wrote, he began, you finally thinking like a case still? Proud of you. Handle it. The words rang like a verdict. Marcus's carefully controlled face cracked. He's misreading a private, he started. Mr. Castel, Judge Parker snapped. If you speak over your son one more time, I'll have you removed. You've done enough talking for him in this life. He closed his mouth. Rage simmered in his eyes. How old were you? She asked Noah. The first time you heard him say people like Mr. Can were in the way? He let out a bitter half-laugh. I don't know, he said. 5, 6. He used to take me on drives, point at blocks and say, that's dead space. One day, we'll bring it to life. He looked at a mirror. I thought we were heroes, he said. Fixing the city. And when did fixing turn into removing? The judge asked. Noah's throat bobbed. The first time someone protested, he whispered. Outside a demolition. Old lady with a sign. This is my home. He looked down at his hands. Dad laughed, he said. So did his friends. She'd die soon anyway. We're thinking long term. The gallery went still. Marcus's fists had turned white on top of his expensive slacks. You're cherry picking, he snarled. Twisting, this isn't cross-examination, Judge Parker cut in. This is context. She turned back to Noah. You learned that if someone was smaller, older, poorer, she said, they were expendable. Obstacles, background. He nodded, shame burning his ears. So when a daycare owner said no, she continued, you reached for the only tools you thought existed, fear, power, and daddy's shadow. Yeah, he whispered. That's exactly it. His honesty hung in the room like a confession in old church. Does that make you less responsible? She asked. No, he said softly. It just explains why I was so good at being awful. A flicker of something crossed Amir's face, hurt, and beneath it, a reluctant respect for the clarity. Lauren shifted her baby on her hip, watching him like a mother watches a child who's finally telling the truth after a long run of lies. Judge Parker took a breath that seemed to carry more weight than her small frame should hold. Mr. Khan, she said. You've heard where he came from. It doesn't erase what he did, but you're the one he hurt. Your voice matters here. What do you need to see from him to believe he's not going to walk out of this room and do it again somewhere else? Amir blinked, caught off guard at being asked. I need my license back, he said. My space. Or a new one. I need the city to clear my name publicly. My parents stopped speaking to me because they thought I put kids in danger. I need them to know that's a lie. He looked at Noah, eyes flint and water mixed together. And I need him, he added, to remember my son's face. Not just my rent bill. The younger man's features twisted. What's his name? He asked, surprising himself with the question. Yusuf, Amir said. Noah nodded. Committing it to memory like an overdue duty, Judge Parker watched them, then turned to the senior Castel. Mr. Castel, she said, your son is finally understanding the damage he's done. Are you prepared to do the same? Or are you going to sit there and blame the market until you retire on a beach somewhere? He straightened, armor slamming back into place. I built an empire, he said. You think I did that by crying every time someone didn't like my decisions? I did what I had to do. For this city, for my family. This city, she echoed. You mean this skyline? Not these people. He didn't answer. You talk about building, she said, but all I see here is demolition. Silence like a held breath. Then a small sound. Sky, no, wrong story, wrong girl. This wasn't a spoiled commissioner's daughter, no. This was the son of a developer. Different arrogance. Same root. Noah made a sound that was almost a sob and almost a laugh. When I was a kid, he said, voice thin, I used to draw buildings. Crazy ones. With slides instead of stairs. Rooftop gardens. I told Dad I wanted to make places people loved, not just investments. He snorted, wiping at an eye quickly. He told me, love doesn't pay for steel, kid. Numbers do. He met his father's gaze. You were proud of me for this, he said. For getting Mr. Khan out. For clearing the block on schedule. You texted me champagne emojis. Marcus looked away. The shame he'd refused to feel in 100 boardrooms had finally found him in a cheap TV courtroom, and it wasn't going anywhere. Here's what's going to happen, Judge Parker said. Voice suddenly all business again. Because this case is no longer just about whether one landlord exercised a clause. She turned to the clerk. Note for the record, she said. This court will be forwarding all evidence of potential fraud, retaliation, and abusive municipal process to the State Attorney General and the City Ethics Commission. She looked at Marcus. You're not under my jurisdiction for punishment, she said. But you're absolutely within my power to expose. He paled. You can't. I just did, she replied. Then she pivoted to Noah. As for you, she said, we'll get to your financial obligations in a minute. He nodded slowly. There's something I want first, she added, before I put a number on any of this. What? He asked. I want you, she said, to look at Mr. Khan and tell him exactly what you thought when you hit send on that email. He froze. You want me to humiliate myself, he said, voice hardening. You've already played the tapes. You want more blood? I want honesty, she corrected. Not performance. You bragged when you thought he'd never hear you. Now I want him to hear it without a bar noise filter. He swallowed. Fine, he muttered. You want ugly? Okay. He dragged his eyes up to meet Amir's. When I emailed the inspector, he said, I thought, this is nothing. A line in my day. I pictured you as a stubborn old guy clinging to a moldy room. I thought, he'll call his cousins, they'll complain, and they'll move on. And I'll get my clean canvas. He flinched at his own words. I didn't see your staff, he continued. Or your kids. Or your landlords. Just an address on a spreadsheet. A delay on a timeline. His voice cracked. I hit send and I went back to my drink, he said. I laughed about nooking your place. And then I forgot about you completely, like you weren't even real. Amir's eyes filled, anger and grief tangling. That, he whispered, is the part that hurts the most. Not that you hit me. That you forgot. The gallery's emotion rose like a tide. Judge Parker let it sit, let it swell. Let it threaten to drown the Castles in the reality they'd bulldozed for years. Then, finally, she picked up her pen. Sit down, she said softly. They did, because for all their skyscrapers, this tiny block of wood and law had more weight than anything they'd ever built. If you were in Marcus's shoes now, watching your son break, your brand unravel, your necessary evils laid bare, would you finally admit you were wrong? Or double down until the last brick falls? Say it. You might learn who you really are, asterisk. The ink on the ruling pad looked darker than usual. Maybe it was the studio lights. Maybe it was the atmosphere. Maybe it was the weight behind each stroke. Judge Parker wrote slowly, deliberately. No rush. She'd seen too many hasty decisions, smashed on appeal to underestimate the power of choosing every word. Then she stopped. Everyone stand. The clerk said automatically. They did. Even Marcus, though every inch of his posture screamed that he bowed to no one. Mr. Khan, the judge began, her voice carrying that steady gravity that shut down side chatter without effort. You came here with your reputation in ruins and your livelihood stolen. Amir's throat bobbed. You could have stayed quiet, she continued. Found a cheaper unit. Started over in the shadows. Instead, you brought this fight into the light. Not just for yourself. For every person who's ever had their life labeled inevitable progress. That took courage. He blinked hard. Nodding just once, she turned to Noah. Mr. Castle, she said. You walked in here believing this court was a nuisance? That this was an inconvenience on your calendar? That your last name would shield you from any real consequences? He didn't try to deny it. Today, she went on. You learned otherwise. Asterisk, she shifted her gaze to Marcus. And you. Mr. Castle Sr., she said, voice cool. Taught him that shield was real. That people were pawns. That power meant never having to see the faces of those you displaced. A muscle jumped in his cheek. This court, she said, can't topple your empire. But it can do two very important things. Repair what you broke here, and shine a floodlight on what you've been doing in the dark. Asterisk, she lifted the ruling. On the matter of Hussein versus Castle, she declared. Judgment is for the plaintiff. A murmur ran through the room. First, she said, the emergency closure of Little Mess Daycare is declared invalid and retaliatory. City departments will be formally notified. The unsafe status on that unit is lifted pending a legitimate, independent inspection to be scheduled at Mr. Khan's convenience. She pointed her pen toward Marcus. Castle Urban and its leadership will have no input on that inspector, she said. 0. If a single email crosses that line, I want it on my desk. Marcus's jaw locked, but he didn't speak. Second, she continued, Mr. Khan is awarded damages for lost income, relocation costs, and reputational harm. She glanced at the numbers. Total, $85,000, she said. Asterisk Noah let out a sharp breath, eyes widening. If you think that's generous, she added. Consider how many months he was closed, how many families scrambled, how many nights he lay awake wondering how to feed his own. She turned to Noah, asterisk. You, she said, will pay half of that personally. $42,500. I don't care if you have to cash out investments or sell watches. Some of this pain needs to come out of your comfort. He swallowed, then nodded. Double quotes, yes, Your Honor, he said. This time, there was no performative hurt, just quiet acceptance. The remainder, she said, will be paid by Coastal Urban as part of a civil settlement. Marcus stiffened. We'll fight that, he snapped. You're welcome to, she replied coolly. On camera, with those emails in the record. He shut his mouth. Third, she continued, Coastal Urban will issue a public statement acknowledging that Little Nest did not close due to safety violations, and that the prior notice was based on erroneous information. She met Amir's eyes. Your parents will read that, she said. Your community will see it. Your name will not live in a file as the man who put children in danger. It will live as the man who fought back. His shoulders slumped with relief he'd been holding in for months. And finally, she said, we address behavior. She looked at Noah. You will complete 150 hours of community service, she ordered. Not in some cushy office stapling papers. At childcare centers that serve low-income neighborhoods. At housing clinics. At legal aid, if they'll have you. Places where the people you've labeled background look you in the eye and tell you their stories. He listened, a strange mix of dread and something like hope flickering. You will also, she added, attend therapy. Real therapy. I am ordering you into a 12-week ethics and empathy program with a licensed counselor. Not because I think you're a child. Because I think you've been raised in a warped ecosystem that rewarded cruelty. He bit his lip. You're not broken beyond repair, she said. But you are bent. Fix it. Yes, Your Honor, he said, voice thick. And you, she said, turning to Marcus, are not off the hook. He exhaled sharply through his nose. Of course not. This court, she said, is forwarding every scrap of evidence we have to the Attorney General, the Ethics Commission, and Internal Affairs. They will decide if your pattern of handling resistant tenants amounts to fraud, coercion, or worse. He laughed once, dry. You're trying to make an example of me, he said. No, she replied. You did that yourself. I'm just making sure people see it. Their eyes locked. It was less judge versus developer now, more human versus machine. You wanted a legacy, she said. Here it is, a warning to every other suit who thinks leverage matters more than lives. He looked like he wanted to argue. He didn't, maybe for the first time in years. He understood he wasn't the most powerful person in the room. Now, she said, the hardness in her tone easing just a fraction. One last thing. She turned to Noah, stepped toward Mr. Khan, she said. Leave your father out of this. This is between you and the man you hurt. He moved, slow, like the air was thick. They stood a few feet apart. The contrast was stark. Expensive fabric versus worn cotton. Manicured hands versus calloused ones. Arrogance versus earned humility. Look at him, she said. He did. Say what you need to say, she instructed. Without excuses. Without Dad, just you. Noah took a breath so deep his chest shook. I'm sorry, he said. It was small, almost swallowed. Judge Parker raised an eyebrow. Try again, she said. He nodded. Double quotes, Mr. Khan. He began, voice steadier this time. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I treated your life like a checkbox. I'm sorry I made jokes about nooking your daycare. I'm sorry I never bothered to imagine your son's face, or the parents, or what closing your door would feel like from your side. His eyes glistened. I grew up thinking the city was a board game, he said. That pieces moved when we said so. That if people lost, it meant they weren't smart enough to play. I see now how cruel that is. How stupid. He swallowed hard. I don't expect you to forgive me, he added. I don't think a check and some hours in a shelter undo what I did. But I promise you this. I will remember Yusuf's name every time I sit in a meeting where someone calls a place like yours an obstacle, and I will not be the one sending those emails again. Silence, then. Slowly, Amir nodded. I don't forgive you, he said, honest. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. He hesitated. But I hear you, he added. And I'll be watching. Because if you ever become that person again, and it's my block you're aiming at. He gave a humorless half-smile. I know how to find this courtroom. A ripple of subdued laughter, mixed with something like cautious optimism, passed through the benches. Judge Parker let the moment breathe. Then she straightened. This court, she said, has one job to say very clearly that you're not untouchable just because you have money or a last name or a tower with your logo on it. She scanned the room. You are touchable, she said. You are accountable. And if you forget that, there's always someone like Mr. Khan who will remind you. With receipts. She raised the gavel, face closed. She said, the wood struck. Somewhere. A timeline and a developer's spreadsheet shattered somewhere else. A little boy named Yusuf asked his father if he could go back to his school someday. And in a cheap TV courtroom, a man who built empires and a boy who thought he'd inherit them learned that the only thing taller than their towers was the truth. Now it's your turn. Do you think someone like Noah, born in privilege, trained in cruelty, can really change after a beating like this? Or will he just learn to hide it better? Drop change if you believe in the work he has to do. Or never if you think people like this only understand power when it hurts. What we just watched wasn't just a courtroom win. It was an X-ray. On the surface, it looked simple. A rich developer's son sends one email. A daycare shuts down. A little guy drags him into court, and the judge makes him pay. Satisfying, sure. But if you stop there, you miss the actual lesson. The one that hurts a little because it doesn't just apply to Noah and his father. It applies to anyone who's ever used what they have to step on someone with less. The first thing this story teaches is brutal in its honesty. Power by itself isn't evil. What you believe about it is. Noah didn't wake up thinking, I'm going to ruin a man's life today. He woke up believing a lie he'd heard so often it felt like truth. Cities are games. Buildings are pieces. People are obstacles. In that belief, closing a daycare wasn't cruel. It was inevitable. That's how real harm happens. Not with cartoon villains, but with normal people who've convinced themselves their comfort is more important than someone else's survival. The judge's job in this case wasn't just to read laws. It was to force everyone in that room to see what they'd carefully avoided. There are faces behind every Phase 1 demo, every truck issue, every roach nest. For Noah, the turning point wasn't the money he was ordered to pay. It was when he was forced to say out loud what he thought when he hit send on that email, and then look directly at the man on the receiving end. Once you hear yourself call a daycare a liability and its owner inevitable loss, you can never pretend those were just harmless words again. The story also drives home a second, uncomfortable truth. Entitlement is often taught before it's chosen, but choosing it is still on you. Noah didn't invent the language of, we're in the leverage business, and if they don't sell, make them wish they had. He absorbed it. At 7, it sounded like ambition. At 27, it had become his moral compass. The judge didn't let that upbringing excuse him, and she shouldn't, but she did what a lot of systems never bothered to do. She named where it came from. If you grew up in a house where winning was everything and empathy was weakness, this story is your mirror. Your programming is not your destiny, but you can't change what you won't admit you carry. Then there's a mirror. He teaches a lesson. Power hates. Paperwork and courage can be stronger than money. By all logic, he should have disappeared quietly. Find a cheaper unit. Apologize to parents for something he didn't do. Start over smaller. Instead, he chose to drag every shady email and smug voicemail into a room where the case stills didn't control the narrative. He came shaking, not shouting. That's important. You don't have to be fearless to fight back. You just have to believe that your truth is worth putting on record. He wasn't alone either. Lauren, the mother with the baby, stood up when she didn't have to and said the line most developers never want to hear. You think I want your tower? You think that I'll watch my child at 6 a.m.? Eli, the clerk in records, broke his own comfort to preserve the emails everyone else wanted deleted. Without their small acts of defiance, this case would have been nothing but sloppy bureaucracy. The lesson is clear. Justice rarely happens because one hero shows up. It happens because ordinary people in small positions decide not to look away. Another hard truth in this story is about what real accountability should look like. It's easy to say, fine him, ruin him, throw him in jail. That's punishment. Sometimes it's deserved. But what the judge did here was more surgical. She repaired damage, money, license, name. Exposed the system, referrals to ethics and internal affairs. And then forced transformation, community service in the very spaces he dismissed. Therapy to unravel the rot he'd been raised on. And a public apology that couldn't be ghostwritten. She didn't just want Noah to suffer. She wanted him to become someone who would never do this again, not because he was scared of consequences, but because he finally understood the cost. Maybe the most important lesson is this. You don't need a skyscraper or a badge to misuse power. You have some right now. Maybe it's over a staff member, a younger sibling, someone serving you at a counter, or a stranger online. When you're impatient, when you snap, when you use your mood as a weapon because they'll get over it, in that moment, you're doing a smaller version of what Noah did. You're choosing not to see a person. You're seeing a function, a hurdle, background. This story is a warning to everyone, not just the wealthy. The day you forget there's a human on the other side of your frustration is the day you start becoming the kind of person who can nuke a daycare and sleep fine. So what's the takeaway? Really? It's this. Power doesn't protect you from truth. It only delays when truth catches up. You can be a Castel, a Blake, a Hale, or just someone with a little authority in a small space. The pattern is the same. You will either use what you have to build for others, or to bulldoze them. And one day, in a literal courtroom, or a metaphorical one, you're going to have to answer for which one you chose. If this story hit something in you, maybe you've been on Amir's side, crushed by someone who called it just business. Or maybe you've seen a little too much of yourself in Noah's casual cruelty. Don't just scroll away. Ask yourself one honest question. In the next conflict you walk into, are you going to act like people are pieces on your board, or like they're as real as you? Because that's where change actually starts. Not in a verdict. In the next email you send, the next complaint you make, the next time you decide whether to swing your weight, or your empathy. If you felt the weight of that, don't keep it to yourself. Tell me in the comments, do you believe someone like Noah can truly change after this, or does he just learn to hide it better? And more importantly, which version of him are you closer to right now? If you want more stories like this, where courtroom drama isn't just entertainment, it's a mirror. Make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that no one is really above consequence. Remember, buildings fall, brands fade, last names lose their shine. The only thing that actually follows you everywhere, into every deal, every conflict, every room you ever walk into, is your character. Make sure that's the part you'd still be proud to defend when it's your turn to stand in front of a judge.